Hey, what's up you guys, it's Dorothy and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to go into another flashback in the book One of Us is Back, except for this time the flashback is by Simon. This video may contain sensitive topics and foul language. If you guys do not wish to continue, I suggest you click off the video now. You have been warned. Let's get right into this video. Simon, 6 years earlier. Jake's vacation house reminded Simon of Jake's family, bland, impractical, and more than a little pretentious. Take the living room furniture, for example. What kind of family with a teenage boy would fill an entire room with stark white furniture? The Rordians, that's who. They only had themselves to blame for Simon propping his dirty sneakers up on one of the ends of the couch while he opened a notebook and uncapped his pen. He was finally alone since Mr. and Mrs. Rordian were out antiquing, whatever that was, and Jake was taking a nap in his room or pretending to be asleep. Either way was fine with Simon. He flipped pages until he got to what he was looking for. People I hate. Concise and to the point, Simon didn't like wasting words while cataloging grievances. He'd added Browen Rojes last week after they attended the same preparatory Model UN summer program. Browen lived in Bayview too, but she'd gone to St. Pewis for elementary and middle school instead of Buckingham Academy like Simon and Jake, so Simon had never met her before. He could tell instantly that they'd be in all the same honor classes in high school, and that she'd possibly challenge him for top grades. She's not smarter than me, Simon decided, as the dark-haired girl made her points of inquiry, but she'll probably work harder. Brown noser, he'd written in his notebook, irritating voice, insecure. He'd also written ugly, but then after some consideration crossed it out. Simon prided himself on being harsh but fair, and other people's physical attributes always tested his objectivity. Just because he didn't find Browen Rojes the slightest bit aesthetically pleasing didn't mean that someone else might not think differently. Someone with terrible taste, clearly, but still. Today, though, Simon was interested in adding to the Browen's entry. Instead, he flipped to a blank page and started writing. Jake Rordian sucks at video games, watches reality television unironically, stares at himself in the mirror. Fake. Simon kept writing, pen digging into the thin paper of his notebook. He thought about making an entry for Jake before, of course, because Jake could be fucking annoying, but he hadn't done it out of some kind of misguided loyalty that he now realized wasn't returned. Jake and his father liked to get up at 7 a.m. to go running, and they knew better than to invite Simon along. Simon usually liked to sleep until noon, but he was restless in his uncomfortable bed. The mattress was like a gigantic pillow, much too soft for his liking, so today he got up earlier than usual and went outside. Then he wandered around the Rordians' 2 acres of land, so bored that he was literally kicking rocks until he heard voices. Then why did you invite him? It was Mr. Rordian, huffing from whatever exercise they were doing now. The grounds were littered with fitness equipment that was meant to look like part of the landscape. A pull-up bar built into a tree, for example. That's probably what they were using because Jake was obsessed suddenly with having biceps and abs. Who else am I supposed to invite? Jake said sulkily. Whoever you want, Mr. Rordian said. For crying out loud, Jake, you're a Rordian. Since when do Rordians need to settle for the Simon Kellers of the world? You should be hanging out with what's-his-name from Mississippi, the baseball phenomenon. Simon paused at the edge of the clearing, trying to analyze the effect that Mr. Rordian's words had on him. He's never liked Jake's father, but he hadn't considered that the feeling might be mutual. He was surprised, he supposed, but ultimately indifferent, because he didn't care what Scott Rordian thought. But Jake, on the other hand, Jake was actually complaining about Simon. Now that was offensive, especially since Simon had always taken a certain amount of pride in being Jake's friend. Jake was irritating, sure, but he had the potential to be a lot more. A person of consequence at Bayview High, a place that Simon was determined to rule once he got there. Simon had always assumed that Jake saw the same potential in him. Cooper, Jake said, I'm trying. Though that was news to Simon. He didn't have a hate page for Cooper Clay yet, but it was probably only a matter of time. Nobody on the receiving end of that much mindless worship could escape being an asshole. Well, try harder, Mr. Rordian said, or come here on your own and use the time to work out. Mark my words, there's something creepy about that Keller kid. I know, Jake said. You're right. Dad, you're always right. Now Simon carefully wrote Daddy's boy on his list. Then he paused when the sound of tires crunching on gravel reached his ears. It looked as though the Rordians were back from antiquing, and that was enough to propel Simon off the couch and into hiding. He headed for the second floor to a small balcony off the guest bedroom where he could hear anyone coming up the driveway without being seen. He was seized with the sudden certainty that the Rordians would be talking about him. They'd probably spent their entire antique trip plotting how to send him home early, and he wanted to know exactly what they had to say. As it turned out, though, Simon wasn't the center of their universe. "I can't believe you, Catherine," Mr. Rordian said tightly. He didn't slam the car door because it was a brand new BMW, but Simon could tell from his voice that he wanted to. "This is a family trip. I know, and I'm sorry," Miss Rordian said, "but we're in such a crucial point in the campaign. I wish I could trust someone else to oversee the creative, but I can't. You need to learn the art of delegating," Mr. Rordian said. "Boring," Simon thought. He'd heard enough and was about to withdraw from the balcony when Mr. Rordian added, "Otherwise you're going to continue setting a poor example for Jake." "Poor example?" Miss Rordian echoed. "For taking my job seriously? For caring about it more than you care about this family? But that's..." Even on the second floor, Simon could hear Miss Rordian take a deep breath, steadying breath. "How can you say that, Scott? With all the traveling you do, at least my work is local. I've never missed a Pop Warner game or a parent-teacher conference so it's my fault you're obsessed with work," Mr. Rordian asked. "I'm not obsessed." "Just go, Catherine," Mr. Rordian broke in. His tone was curt, dismissive. "I'll take care of our meal for the evening like I always do." The front door slammed, and then there was nothing but silence for so long that Simon assumed Miss Rordian had slipped away too. "Like it's so hard to order takeout," she finally muttered, and Simon nearly laughed out loud. Miss Rordian had a spine after all. Too bad she used it only when she was alone. She was quiet for a while longer, and when she spoke again, her voice was transformed. It was bright and energetic, the kind of tone where you could tell the person was smiling even if you couldn't see them. "I'll be there in an hour," she said. "I just need to pack a few things." After a few moments of silence, she added, "I can't wait either." Simon peered over the edge of the balcony as Miss Rordian hung up the phone, turning in his direction. All she'd have to do to see him was glance up, but she didn't, and Simon got a good look at her face before she went inside. Her expression made one thing clear. Mrs. Rordian liked her job a lot better than she liked her husband. That is the end of this. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.